All right, here we go. Salute to Knicks Nation on this Friday, late afternoon here on the East Coast. Another edition of KFTV Live, Bleacher Report simulcast. CP the franchise here, and joining me today is no stranger to longtime KFTV fans. He is the Minnesota Timberwolves insider, beat reporter, Bally Sports reporter as well, and that is Krawczynski off the Athletic. Man, we're gonna lock in and deep dive on this Karl Towns trade from the Minnesota side of things, and always looking forward to our conversations with John. So lock in, hit the like button, hit the share button, and subscribe to the channel, and let's get into it. Happy Friday, everybody. John, happy Friday to you, man, and welcome back to the show.
Same to you, CP. Good to see you as always.
You know, it's so interesting because I love when I can go back into the archives and listen to conversations. And me and you started this journey like 3-4 years ago, or maybe even before that, when the Knicks hired Thibs.
Yeah, I think so.
And it's like all along, we've been just tapping in on these topics of conversation. And here we go, blockbuster trade, Karl Towns to the Knicks, man. It just keeps on getting better.
A lot of crossover now. You got Karl Towns, you got Thibs, Gerson Rosas is over there. So worlds are colliding all over the place with this.
Yeah, no question. And I got to start with you, man, because your piece, I mean, you wrote several pieces on this trade with The Athletic, but one in particular really made national news and headlines. And it was a phenomenal piece by you because it really painted the picture of who Karl Towns is. And you vividly described some of his last moments there in Minnesota, and it was a personal connection for you.
Yeah, it was. It was, I think that knowing him 9 years, I'd been here right when he got drafted, all through the ups and the downs that he's gone through in the NBA. And I understand, there are perceptions of him as a player. Sometimes there are perceptions of him as a person and what people think of him. And I just, knowing him the way that I do, I knew that a lot of what has been criticized about him from a personal perspective is just off base. Like, I understand, like, we can have debates, real ones, about him playing and how much he contributes to winning and the talent and all of those things. But when you talk about the heart that Karl Towns has, like, I just have never doubted that part of it. And so I just needed to share a story about, the day after he was traded, literally, maybe 13, 14 hours after he was traded, he comes to my daughter's soccer game because my daughter is a huge KAT fan and they've met over the years. Her and my son have both met him a few times over the years. And my daughter wears number 32 on her jersey because of KAT, and just is an enormous fan, and was very, very upset when I told her that he was traded, cried herself to sleep, and told KAT about that a late Friday night, early Saturday morning, and he said, "I'll come on over and see the kids before I go." And I never thought that he was going to make it. There's way too many things going on in his life, but he made probably a 35-minute drive. Came out, watched the game, took pictures with all sorts of different soccer girls that were around, and then really had a nice little conversation with my daughter and my son, saying goodbye to them. So just a really heartfelt, very cool thing that I thought was really indicative of who he is at his core, which is a really good person.
Yeah, and from a relationship standpoint, it's watching, not to say a kid because he came into the NBA, he was 19, but from NBA years, a kid to a man, just watching him in 9 years in Minnesota, because you were there covering the team at that time when he came in as a rookie, correct?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, he came in as a 19-year-old rookie. I mean, he still had the baby fat on his face, and I kind of was looking back on some of those videos of his initial press conferences and things, and just remembering back to those times and seeing him and Andrew Wiggins and Zach LaVine, like they all just look like kids, just youngsters. And he came in very eager, very wide-eyed, and then went through a lot of difficult times here, especially early on in his career, losing a bunch of games. You had the Jimmy Butler stuff. You had just a lot of really tough things. Losing his mother, obviously, to COVID was a huge thing. And so I kind of saw him run the gamut of human emotion over the course of his career here. Then he kind of grows up. He starts, kind of settling in. He's dating Jordan Woods. He's becoming, growing into a man there. And all of a sudden, then the Timberwolves are having a lot of success,
Yeah.
winning in playoff series, and he's playing a big role in that. And so it's been a long journey. There's not often in this league you get 9 years with one player, and so to be able to watch him kind of go through all the ups and downs, grow up, learn, mature, do all those things, I felt pretty fortunate to do that.
So when we think about all that, the player that he is off the court, on the court, one of the best shooting big men in the game, no question, hands down. Why'd they trade him?
Well, so there's a couple of things about it. I mean, I think first of all, initially when you see a trade like this happen, you're thinking, oh, this is a salary dump, right? A team with ownership issues. They're going to pay a big luxury tax. They're trying to just dump out of it and not pay that tax, even though they have a very good team that might even be capable of winning a championship. But that's really not accurate in way to look at this. Now, there were real financial implications to this deal because right now the Timberwolves are in the second apron. They're still in the second apron. So they are going to save quite a bit of money luxury tax wise by trading Towns for Randall and DiVincenzo and Bates-Diop, because it's about a $10 million difference between those three versus what Karl makes. So you save a lot of luxury tax money, but more importantly, in the Timberwolves' eyes, is with this new collective bargaining agreement, when you're in that second apron, you have severe restrictions on the trades you can make. You have severe restrictions on free agents you can sign. And if you're in that apron for multiple years, you run the risk of having your first round draft pick just bumped all the way down to the bottom of the round. And they look at having Anthony Edwards as a 23-year-old that's not close to his prime yet. But he's bursting onto the scene, and they have a max deal with KAT, a max deal with Ant, a max deal with Rudy Gobert. Jaden McDaniels is making a bunch of money. Naz Reid is making some good money. They just didn't have a way of kind of getting back to being under that second apron relatively soon, so that they can retain some of that flexibility and optionality from a team building standpoint, so they can continue to surround Edwards with the talent that they need to be competitive, not just next year, but like 5 years down the road, 6, 7 years down the road. And so that was a big factor in kind of deal. They just needed to sort of redistribute their cap sheet. Towns makes $220 million over the next 4 years. And that was just going to be too much for them to be able to dig out of. And so this way, by making that deal, you get Randall and DiVincenzo. DiVincenzo has one of the best contracts in the NBA. It also allows them maybe a little bit more flexibility to re-sign Naz Reid next year. And so and also you get two guys for one. Randall's an all-NBA player. DiVincenzo is a great role man. And so I think that the Wolves looked at this and said it not only helps us long-term financially, but they actually also believe that it can give them a little bit more depth and a little bit more versatility for the short term as well. And so they ultimately looked at this as soon as the Knicks put DiVincenzo into the deal. They said, you know what, we're probably not going to find a better deal than this. We're eventually going to have to trade KAT, so let's just do it now and take a deal that we really like.
And I have to imagine Naz Reid's development and progression over the last 3 years certainly had to factor into it, right?
Absolutely. If they keep KAT, they have to say goodbye to Naz Reid. And I think that not only his development, because he's turned into a player who is a reasonable facsimile skill set wise to KAT. It's a big man, shoots threes, can put the ball on the deck and get to the hole, all of those things. And it's a great player development story in and of itself. But also, I'm telling you guys, like, you have to be in the arena when Naz Reid gets introduced. Like he is an incredibly popular folk hero here for the Timberwolves fan base. And so if they can find a way to keep him, and he's going to make not anywhere close to what KAT makes, and still maybe be able to produce not what KAT does. KAT's gonna produce more than Naz, but certainly at least get closer to that, then they just looked at that as something that they had to consider going forward.
And they're adding in Randall. You're absolutely right. I think DiVincenzo's contract is one of the best in the NBA. He certainly proved that last year. I hated seeing his name in the deal. I was always thinking it was, maybe a Randall Robinson thing, even though that would have been tough for me as well. DiVincenzo just played so well for the Knicks last year. And for the Wolves, I felt like they needed help, especially at the guard spot. I think they need an upgrade over Conley. We'll see if, Dillingham or one of those guys can eventually fill that spot. But I like DiVincenzo adding him to that guard rotation because they needed some more punch, especially off the bench from a shooting standpoint.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you give up KAT, who is he is their best shooter, not their best shooting big man, he's their best shooter. And so when you give him up on a team with Gobert, who's a non-shooter, you have to find a way to generate more three-point shooting. And DiVincenzo not only shoots around the similar percentage of KAT, but he shoots a higher volume.
Yeah.
And so I think that's going to give them a little bit different element to their offense. Last year, as great as KAT is as an offensive player and as great as Ant is as an offensive player, they were still 17th in the league in offensive efficiency. And so one of their main priorities going into this season was to increase that offensive efficiency. And so they think that bringing DiVincenzo in gives them another shooter, another floor spacer. Also, Nickeil Alexander-Walker is a great role player, but he is streaky from an offensive standpoint.
Yeah.
So DiVincenzo gives them a little bit more consistency at that spot. And you're right, in terms of Conley is someone they lean really heavily on, but he's going to be 37 this year. They know that they cannot give him a huge workload during the regular season if they want him to be healthy in the playoffs, and he's so important to what they do. So if DiVincenzo comes in and gives them another option, certainly not as a natural point guard, but somebody that can at least get you into your offense, that can help you reduce Conley's minutes. And it also means that they don't have to put so much pressure on Rob Dillingham, a 19-year-old rookie, to be ready right away to come in and just be a real plus contributor on a Western Conference Finals team. Like, that's a lot to ask any rookie. And so this way they can ease him in as well. So DiVincenzo has a lot of benefits that he brings to the table, in addition to great shooting, really dogged defender, and an all-around good locker room guy as well.
When I was asked when the trade first went down and people were asking, what do you think about it? I was on the fence because in the Randall for KAT situation, I almost see them being in the same bracket where, they're fan favorites. They get a lot of credit for establishing something great, but could they take their teams to the promised land where their team ceiling's capped with them? I think it's an intriguing debate because that's what I felt like the Knicks were headed with Randall, and almost to a certain extent where Minnesota was heading with Karl Anthony Towns. And so I say, well, it's a question mark for a question mark. Well, what do you think?
Yeah, no, it's been a really interesting trade to try and get my head around. I know that locally here, if there are the people who are against the trade, I think are all saying, wait a minute, you gave up KAT and all you're getting is Randall back as the main piece. And I think there's a lot of people who don't really believe in Randall. Now, you would know better than any of them or me as someone who watched him every game, what exactly he brings to the table. But from the people that I talk to within the Wolves believe that people are underrating Julius and what kind of player he is. Now, there certainly is going to be a question mark about fit with Rudy Gobert. He's certainly a different kind of player than KAT in a different style. He's not the shooter that KAT is, but I think he's more physical and he gets to the rim a little bit more and things of that nature. So, there has been I think around here, a lot of people have said Julius Randle is nowhere near KAT, and so that's why the Wolves lost this trade. But I think that internally they believe that the skill sets and the production are much, much closer than maybe some of the skeptics believe.
Well, with the prospect of KAT, though, I do It does interest me because back in the summer when I spoke to members close to the organization who let me know that their interest in Kat was real, and that there was a slim chance Julius would return. But they talked about the prospect of spacing that floor for Jalen Brunson, and it intrigues me because it's such a departure from where Thibs has been with the traditional center, and now they finally get that stretch shooting big. And I just wonder where is he going to take that, and the options in terms of their lineups that the Knicks are going to be able to put out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, that starting five, now that you put KAT in that group, is as good as almost any in the league. I mean, maybe Boston at full strength, or, there might be one or two other, but I think they're right at the top. I wonder about the depth a little bit, but I think that one thing that really intrigues me about this deal for both sides is one of the sticky issues I think that both teams dealt with. You had KAT was first in the door in Minnesota, Randall was first in the door in New York, and then both franchises had guards that came in and just
Great point.
rocketed right past both of them. Ant in
Yeah.
Minnesota, Jalen Brunson in New York. And I think that there are complicating factors when you have the established guy has to sort of pass the torch. Now, I think that that was one of KAT's strengths in his time here, was being gracious and accepting Anthony Edwards, accepting Rudy Gobert, not being bitter or raising a stink about it at all. But yet there's always just this undercurrent that is ingrained that this has kind of been KAT's team for a long time. This has been Julius Randle's team for a long time. So how do you kind of really navigate that changing of the guard? Now, when you flip them both, now Julius Randle comes in and he knows this is Ant's team.
Right.
Like that's where the pecking order is established fully. Karl Anthony Towns is going to walk into that locker room and know that Jalen Brunson is the guy. And so I think that from that perspective, sort of slotting in the roles and the pecking order is going to be a lot cleaner for both teams. And so in that respect, I do think I would expect KAT to be very gracious and very understanding of, Jalen Brunson could run for mayor there and win, and so he's there to support and be a guy to help him. Whereas, before it was, kind of, this is my team, and now Ant's coming in, and it's great, but how do you figure that out? So I just think that things are just cleaner on both sides now.
Yeah.
Same with Julius. Julius comes in, hey, this is Ant's team now. He wants to get his and he wants to help and he's got the contract and all that. But I just think it's easier for everyone to say, here's where it starts, here's where we go, here's where we all slot in, and the puzzle pieces kind of make a little bbit more sense right away.
Yeah, no question about it. And you're right, because when Jalen Brunson first got here, or when the rumors were being kicked around that the Knicks could be pursuing him, I at first looked at it as, okay, Julius Randle has a sidekick, has a guy that can play off of him and help him. And next thing Brunson grabs the ball and says, hey, this is my team now. You got to figure out where you fit in. And so it's really interesting how those dynamics can change. But I do look forward to, because I didn't feel like the Randle Brunson duo was as good as it didn't really meet its potential. But I feel with Karl Anthony Towns, it's much different, and that these two can really play off of each other.
Yeah, I mean, I think that absolutely. I mean, what makes a lot of sense to me is Brunson loves to probe in the mid range, right? Loves to kind of use his body and get to the paint, but all that herky jerky stuff in the mid range and it, kind of right outside of the restricted areas, such a big part of his game. Where KAT loves to screen and pop, like space the floor, then get it on the outside, maybe pump fake and go to the basket. And so the two games are very complementary, I think. And I do think that what Jalen will see, what a lot of the Knicks will see when Karl gets there and really starts to get settled in, is they're going to see a player who just wants to fit in and wants to be a part of something and wants to get along with everyone. And so he's not coming in with this gigantic ego of I'm the four-time All-Star,
Hmm.
I have the max deal, everything has to run through me. That's not ever been Karl's approach. And so if you have someone that has that approach to it, that's really kind of open to those types of things and really understands it, and then also has the skill set to really complement what Jalen does, I mean, I think it can be a really devastating combination, and it can be really, really hard to guard.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you there. The soft label
Mhm.
for Towns, it's followed him year after year. It's stuck with him. From my perspective, because I think everyone defines it a little bit differently. I think
Yeah.
there's some who say, well, he's not a tough guy, and he's doing all these quirky things and saying all these quirky things. From my perspective, as a Knicks fan, and seeing how hard it is for players to succeed here, that's where I'm kind of measuring where he is. Like, where is his heart in terms of when those lights get bright in Madison Square Garden? Jalen Brunson has shown he's ready, especially in the playoffs. Like, he's going. And I'm wondering if Towns can meet him there, like that level of intensity, because I truly believe that's what they're gonna need for these guys to come close to winning a championship. It's that killer instinct, that dog, that heart mentality, and that's where I wonder if Towns is gonna be that guy for the Knicks.
Yeah, I mean, look, he had a lot of questions about that before the playoffs last year, and he played really, really well against Phoenix and Denver. They don't get to the Western Conference Finals without him, but he did not play well against Dallas. He did not shoot the ball well at all, and there was a little bit of a bad taste in his mouth coming out of the playoffs after that because he was critical against Denver, critical against Phoenix, and then in Dallas, against Dallas, it just didn't work out. There's no question that he's going to face more scrutiny and more attention in New York than he did in Minnesota. I think that one of the things about his stay here was by year 6, 7, 8 in the league, we had really gotten to know him, and so some of the idiosyncratic things that he had, whether he was things that he was saying in podcasts or
Mm.
in interviews and things that that he was doing, it was so second nature to us. We didn't really like belabor a lot of it. Now it's going to be the first time for everyone in New York. They're all going to be seeing this and experiencing it for the first time, and he's going to have to kind of adjust to every single word that he says is going to be parsed
Right,
and paid
right.
attention to and pulled apart. And that's part of being in New York. It's the ones who succeed there can handle that, can shut that stuff out and just lock in and focus and do their jobs. And the ones that let that bother them are the ones that flame out. Now, I we will see how he handles all of that and all of that scrutiny. I think there will be a honeymoon period. I think it would be ideal if they start out strong and he starts playing well
Yes.
just to kind of just let everyone settle in. There's always going to be slumps in a season, but if that comes in February instead of in October, that would be better for him.
Sure.
But as far as the soft label or whatever, I don't think he's soft. I've seen him, let's just say I've seen him overcome the death of his mother. I've seen him be in dysfunctional situations in Minnesota and not asks for trades when every other player asks for the easy way out. Like Karl stayed here and he's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, I want to be a part of this. And so to me, that's tough. Like that shows like moral fiber. That
Sure.
shows, someone that wants to stay in it. But you will see at some point this season, you will get upset with some of the whining to the officials. You'll get
Mm-hmm.
upset with offensive fouls that he commits. You'll get upset when he drives to the lane and or drives to the rim and then falls down under the basket and is kind of slow to get back. Those are things that happen with Karl Anthony Towns.
Mm.
Like that's part of his game, and that will receive scrutiny there.
Mm-hmm.
And how he handles that, I think, will go a long way toward kind of really deciding, is this going to be a really good marriage that lasts a long time, or is this not gonna work out as well?
Great point. CP the franchise here. John Krawczynski of The Athletic. Salute to everybody in the chat once again. Hit the like button, hit the share button, and subscribe to the channel. Salute to our friends watching on Bleacher Report, on Facebook, on Twitter, X as well. For my franchise channel members in the chat on YouTube, go ahead and leave me an emoji. Let me know that you guys are in here. Friday evening, tap in on KFTV Live. We are dishing on the Karl Anthony Towns trade to the New York Knicks. Gerson Rosas, he's been here for a couple of years with the Knicks. It was reported during the Donovan Mitchell negotiations that he was the point man here that was speaking to the Utah Jazz representative. I believe it was Justin Zanuck, I believe was the name, and he was the one that was kind of spearheading the talks. Do you know if it was him and Tim Connolly handling those things, or did you hear anything in that regard?
I didn't hear specifically whether it was Gerson or Brock Aller or Leon or, who exactly was spearheading the Knicks side of things. But what I can tell you is this whole process feels eerily similar to when Gerson Rosas went and got D'Angelo Russell from Golden State in terms of, the Wolves missed out on D'Angelo in free agency. But then you kept hearing after that, no, we're still going after him. We're still going after him. We're still going after him. And eventually they landed him in December with an offer. And so for the last year plus, we've heard the Knicks want KAT, the Knicks want KAT, the Knicks want KAT. And every time I talk to people within the organization, they're like, yeah, they say they want him, but we haven't heard, any offers of substance. We're happy with what we have. And it hasn't, nothing has kind of materialized out of it. And then all of a sudden, it did start to materialize and it did start to pick up, and they eventually did land Karl Anthony Towns, probably adding a little bit more than they wanted to when they threw in DiVincenzo.
Yeah.
But that feels like Gerson Rosas, because he just finally made Golden State an offer they couldn't refuse. And maybe that got to the point here where they, pursued and finally made the Wolves an offer that they felt like they couldn't refuse. And so all of that really lines up. I can't say definitively whether Gerson was driving the bus, but it feels like kind of like a Gerson process.
The Thibs factor. It's another storyline that I think many will be looking at in terms of this trade and their future success. And it's interesting because, we had touched on that when Thibs first got hired here. Towns has said that they've, meshed everything and mended the fences. What do you think about their success going forward?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting, I talked to him several years ago, and he told me when he kind of approached Thibs and tried to bury the hatchet and just move on from it, because it did not end well. They were not talking. Karl was extremely frustrated with how Thibs handled the Jimmy Butler situation, and it ended poorly. But a lot of times, CP, what happens with Thibs players is in the moment, while they're being coached by him, while they're in the foxhole together, they get frustrated with him. They get worn out by him. There's, things that they don't get from a, encouragement, kind of personal connection standpoint that leads them to get upset and kind of get turned off toward him by the end of whenever they're together. And then a lot of times you will hear players 2, 3, 4 years later kind of re-examine Thibs as a coach and say, you know what? I didn't understand at the time, how, his coaching acumen, what he was trying to get out of me, how he was trying to do it, but I do now, and I respect it a lot more, and I look at it a lot differently. And I think that KAT fits into that category. I think so, the one thing though, that is KAT is the exact same player that he was when Thibs was fired, and Thibs is the exact same coach. They are two very, they know who they are. They stay with who they are. And so these two people coming back together have not really changed in a material way. So we'll see if that kind of results in a kind of different just perspective, and they just figure out, hey, we want to win a championship, let's figure this out. Or will it be after 2-3 months back together, it's like, gosh, this guy's still wearing me out again, and I'm not with it. So One thing that I think really serves the Knicks well in this whole thing is that they have Leon, they have Wes, they have even Gerson a little bit, will might factor into this, of people who understand the human element of things and maybe can manage personalities a little bit better. Jalen Brunson is going to be a much better leader for Karl Anthony Towns in the locker room than Jimmy Butler ever was. So those things, I think, even if Tibbs has not become the kind of coach that says, "Hey, Karl, come into my office. Let's get some steaks. Let's have some wine and let's tell some good stories together." If that's not going to happen, they have other people around who can engage Karl on the more human side of the equation and help. Here in Minnesota, Tibbs didn't have that. Like he had, it was, all of Tibbs's people underneath him were lockstep Tibbs dudes and didn't dare do anything that could ever even be considered going differently than Tibbs. So it's a little bit more, I think, layered there in New York now. And so maybe that will help this whole process. But it's also, I think Karl is at a point in his career where he really just wants to win. And so if he can take that attitude into this, I think that'll go a long way toward just making this a much better experience in the second time around than it was the first time.
Yeah, and as you said, now the Knicks have an infrastructure of familiar faces who Towns has those relationships with. So you'd hope that that helps, ease any type of friction that may come about. But I also think that, the rift between these two guys, because a lot of fans, when the rumors were coming out, they're like, "Oh, it'll never happen. These guys don't like each other." But I also think, especially from a fan standpoint, we don't give enough grace for where people are and certain circumstances at a time in their life. Like here you are with Karl Anthony Towns at the time with Tibbs. He's a younger player trying to figure himself out, overcoming different obstacles in his life, whether it's on the court with Butler or off the court with his mom's situation, things of that nature. Tibbs having to be president of basketball operations, coach at the same time, dealing with those pressures. It just seems like a relationship that with time and experience and maturity should be able to, at least from a business standpoint, take care of itself.
Yeah, I think so. And remember too, like the team situations are far different too. When Tibbs and Kat were together, even when Jimmy came into the fold, like it was a very unproven team that was trying to like really make a name for itself again and restore some level of competence and get back to the playoffs. They had not been in the playoffs for 13 straight years when Tibbs, Jimmy, and Kat got there and ended that drought. But now, with this Knicks team that has had some playoff success, and I know like their recent history, they've had like real struggles, but they're out of that now. They are very firmly in the contending for a championship mode. And that's an entirely different kind of set of parameters that both of these guys are dealing with now. So now the stakes are higher. Like, and I think both of them maybe understand that you can go win a championship here and that's very much on the table. That was never on the table in Minnesota. And so when you have those kinds of stakes, I think it's easier for people, whether it's coaches, players, whoever, to set aside whatever they have that might have some friction and say, look, we just have to make this work because there's too much to lose if we don't.
They will play him at the 5. It's not clear how much, but based on your experience in covering him over the 9 years, he's played both positions. He's had to play alongside Gobert or Taj Gibson or Gorgie Dang. And where do you think he's most comfortable playing?
Yeah, I mean, like when you talk about defensively, I think he's at his best when he's at the 4 and there's a rim protecting 5, right? That can help him. But if you look at the numbers last year, the Wolves' defensive numbers were actually quite good when Towns was on the floor and Rudy Gobert was off, meaning that Towns was at the 5 a lot too. So I do think he's underrated as a defender. I don't think I've said it with a bunch of your guys' kind of fan base to connect. He's not Tyson Chandler in his prime. Like that's not who you're getting, but you're also not getting, pick it up, Vucevic or some like just Siv out there either. Like he can play defense. He can move his feet. I think that with Anunoby there,
Right.
that's going to help a lot.
Bridges as
With
well.
Bridges, yep. With Josh Hart, like you have people around him who are going to be able to complement him. So can they be the number one defense in the league with KAT at the 5? I don't know if that's, in the cards, but I think they can be a really good defense and then also on the other end just be an incredible offense. So there's a little bit of a give and take, but Karl was really big for this team defensively last year, and I keep pointing to game 2 against the Denver Nuggets, which is I think the best defensive performance by a team I've ever watched live. When they just dismantled the Nuggets on their home floor and crushed them defensively. Rudy Gobert had left the team to be for the birth of his child. Karl Anthony Towns was the starting 5 there. So there is a history of success. And then if you put him next to Mitchell Robinson when he's healthy, if you put him next to a big dude, he can do that role as well. So there's ample examples of him having success and a team having success defensively with him on the floor.
Well, like I said, I think one of the things that we can appreciate or look forward to with this Knicks team, at least this year, is that the options, especially once Mitchell Robinson comes back and gets healthy. Hopefully, that's on the earlier side of December, January. But you can play with the two of them at the 4-5, or you go with KAT at the 5 and space the floor out. And like you said, the versatility that they now have at the wing, 2, 3, 4, whether it's Hart, Bridges, and Anunoby. Hey, man, guys might not even be making it into the paint or to the rim before you even question whether or not Towns can make a play. So it's certainly going to be interesting. And this trade was incredible to read about, especially from your perspective, to listen about and to watch in terms of the fan reactions. What does your gut tell you? Preseason starting tomorrow. What do you think the Timberwolves are right now in terms of competing in the West?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that they have kind of pushed back on both publicly and privately is that they got demonstrably worse by trading KAT. They believe that they have, with DiVincenzo and Randall, they're getting 2 really good pieces, that will help them still be contenders in the West. They still are talking about going to the finals, and I can see that scenario happening. I do think that they have some things to work through. I think that they're going to have to figure out the Randall Gobert combo. I think they're going to have to kind of, just understand the chemistry of this group. I mean, one of the things that was really important for them last season in their run to the Western Conference Finals was their chemistry and how well everyone got along. Now they're getting 2 new guys in, and that's going to take a little bit of time to form. So I could see them starting a little slower as they figure all of these pieces out and get them together. But from a talent aspect and from a fit standpoint, they're incredibly optimistic about how this is all going to work out. They do not like that it's been characterized as more of a financial move than anything else. They believe that Randall is going to be reinvigorated here. They believe that DiVincenzo is a perfect fit for them in what they do, and they think they're going to win a lot of games here. And I tend to agree with them. I think they're low to mid 50s win team, and that they can really do some damage in the playoffs when they get there.
There we go. Well, it's going to be interesting to see, man. December 19th, KAT returns home to Minnesota, and then January 17th, Randall and DiVincenzo will hit MSG, man. So I'm hoping to tap in with you around those games because these conversations just keep getting better and better, man. But great work, like I said, that piece that you wrote about with KAT and that last gesture that he made for you and your family. That was an incredible piece that you wrote on The Athletic. I encourage all of our viewers to read it. And John, great job, man. And enjoy the weekend, but I appreciate your contributions, man. Excellent.
Thanks a lot, CP. I always appreciate coming on, and I'll actually be there next weekend as well. The Wolves come in to play. So it'll just be preseason, but it'll be good to see everyone. So I'm looking forward to that, and looking forward to just seeing how this all develops. So I appreciate you having me on.
There we go, man. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll catch up.
All right.
That was our guy, man, John Krawczynski of The Athletic. Does great work, man. Make sure you guys are tapping in, reading his stuff on The Athletic, reading his tweets. It's as good as it gets with our guy, John Krawczynski, man. I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. Bleacher Report, I'll be signing off for my guys on YouTube. Hey, man, preseason is just 2 days away. The New York Knicks are not done, ladies and gentlemen. We are just getting started, and the number one show for the fans by the fans has you covered. So make sure you tap in, man. Hit the like button, hit the share button, and subscribe to the channel. Number one show for the fans by the fans, man. Remember to support our sponsors over at Manscaped. Go to manscaped.com. Use our code KFTV for 20% off plus free shipping. You can't lose, man. Manscaped, the number one men's grooming tool above and below the waist. No testimonials. Just go get the products, man. The Lawnmower 5.0, the Beard Hedger Kit, the ear and nose shaver. You got shampoo, conditioner, deodorant. What more can you ask for, man? Great products for today's man. So make sure you support us, support them. Manscaped.com. Use our code KFTV for 20% off plus free shipping. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed it, man. That was like a little double header, man. I had to catch up. I told you I lost my voice randomly for like the last 2 days. So I was chomping at the bit to get to this KAT coverage. You know, he did report to practice. We got the Club Shay Shay interview. If you guys want me to react to that, we'll do a reaction show. Those reaction shows typically do well. And then we got the preseason tip-off, man. So we are back to work, and it feels like we've never stopped working. But, hey, this is what we do, man. Number one show for the fans by the fans. John Krawczynski. Earlier today, we had Nat Butler, famous NBA legendary photographer. All your favorite moments like the dunk back here behind me. Nat Butler shot that on his camera. We had a fantastic show earlier today. Diehard Knicks fan. He gave his reactions to the KAT trade. Talked about Ewing legacy, Marbury, Melo. I mean, Brunson. He's covered them all. That interview was fantastic. We had Mike Woodson on earlier this week, talking about the KAT trade. Number one show for the fans by the fans, ladies and gentlemen. The best or nothing. Tap in with us, man. Like, share, subscribe. That's all we ask for in return, man. Like, share, and subscribe. But anyway, man, have a great weekend. We'll tap in. We might tap in tomorrow. Stay tuned, but definitely Sunday for postgame. I want to shout out Frank Colavecchio, franchise channel member. Salute to you, Frank. Thanks for tapping in. Thanks for your support. And enjoy the weekend, man. Have a good night. Be safe, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you guys enjoyed today's show. Leave me a comment. CP the franchise. I'm out of here. Peace.